An SABC crew was held hostage for over 2 hours in Mpumalanga today by alleged ANC supporters who threatened to burn an SABC news vehicle and take the crew's equipment. Our colleague and reporter Mpumalanga detailed what exactly happened during our sister program earlier today.
The latest is that we are still currently engaging with this group of people that I believe they're from the ANC, because they are the actors that got signed placards of the ANC, whom they claim that they are members of the community. We are also with the police here trying to find a solution to the story. In fact, in the morning, we were deployed for a service delivery story in the area called Buffelshoek, just outside Akonuk. So earlier on, we were doing interviews with some community members, and this ANC group, they believe that we neglected talking to the ward councillor in the area. Hence, we made an appointment with the executive mayor at 1400 hours that we will be coming to their offices, doing interviews regarding the issue of lack of water around the Bushbuckridge area. So basically, this is what is happening. We are still negotiating with the police here, including the members of the community, so that they can release us. Yes, they threatened us that they want to burn the car and also take our equipment.
How many of you have been captured, so to speak, and how is it you're at liberty to talk to us right now?
We are three of the SABC crew, two journalists and one camera person, and all of them, they are women. I'm just a male journalist as I speak to you. And now this is a group of, I think, over 20-25 people are wearing ANC regalia, some of them. And clearly you can see that they are serious, believing that we are pushing a certain agenda. And we explained to them to say we are covering stories independently, so, and we'll be impartial. We will make sure that we balance the story. That is why we cannot talk to a ward councillor. We'll then have to talk to a political leader who is the executive mayor of the Bushbuckridge local municipality. But unfortunately, they don't understand. They even say that they are illiterate. They want us to delete some of the materials that we have already filmed here.
Yeah.
Our colleague Mpumalanga speaking to fellow anchor Nombu Siziba about the ordeal that they went through this afternoon. Joining me now to discuss this matter and its implications is the head of news here at the SABC, Patiswa Magopeni. We're also joined by Isak Menar from the South African National Editors Forum, and we're also joined by Terry Tselane, who is, of course, you must be well versed with. He's a former commissioner of the Independent Electoral Commission, well versed in these issues, and will hopefully shed some light as to what needs to, or what happens, what are the rules during this time. 10 days to go before that November 1 election. Patiswa Magopeni, I don't know how that crew survived 2 hours of being held hostage. We were held hostage for a few seconds outside Mill Park Hospital, you know, and we were shaken.
Good evening, viewer, and good evening to the viewers. It is correct. They were so shaken to the extent that only tomorrow they are going to go back and open a case regarding the incident, and that tomorrow we have to organize counseling services for the journalists that were out in that story. And I think what's bothering me more is the fact that this is not even a case of thugs looking for cameras and looking for things they can go and sell. In this case, it was a clear case of censorship and a clear case of trying to gatekeep the kind of coverage that we do. Because one of the things that are clear from the account that we got from the journalists is that the ward councillor was with the group. So she was part of that group, and I got to understand that it's a lady. So she was part of that group. And in fact, what we got to understand is that they wanted us to have approach the ward councillor first to get access to speak to the community. I've never heard of that, that now communities have to get clearance from what councillors or whoever is there as a political head to be able to speak on the issues that they need to talk about. So it is worrying. And as you had said initially, is that this happens a day after the country commemorated Black Wednesday, and if this happens in an environment where journalists are supposed to be guaranteed freedom to do their work, and in a country that embraces democratic principles, and we find ourselves in this situation, it's really, really worrying. And what more worrying is the fact that these are the journalists who are deployed in that area for the period of the elections coverage, that they are going to be with those communities and doing work in those communities. And now we have to think twice about what needs to be done.
And we did invite the ANC. They've been giving us the runaround. Isak Minar, as the South African National Editors Forum, you've been engaging political parties on this matter, on these matters, as well as the Independent Electoral Commission. You are familiar with the conversations that have been going on within the party liaison committee and so on. What were the commitments made in ensuring that, you know, this atmosphere is free and fair and such things actually never happen?
Well, the commitment is actually a legal commitment as captured in the Electoral Code of Conduct, which is part of our legal system. And in the Code of Conduct, there's a specific clause that acknowledges the role of the media during elections, and it reads that all registered parties and candidates should respect the role of the media during elections, not prevent access by media to public events, and ensure that journalists are not harassed, intimidated, and that there is no threat or physical assault on journalists. So that's all part of our legislative framework. In addition to that there's an obligation on parties and candidates participating in the election to actually promote this code and condemn any act that may be in contravention of the code. So we would love to hear the party leaders now to come out and condemn these acts, because that is what the code prescribes.
Terry Talane, I mean, in your past life as the commissioner with the Independent Electoral Commission, what do incidents like these do to the atmosphere that's supposed to be free and fair going into an election, and especially as this incident does, coming so close before the actual election? We have 10 days to go, you know, before that election.
Thank you very much for having me, and good evening to your viewers. Of course, incidents like this contaminates the environment for free and fair elections. And as Isaac correctly pointed out, Section 99 of the Electoral Act creates or establishes a code of conduct to which all the political parties and candidates participating in the elections bind themselves. So it is incumbent upon the political parties and leaders and candidates to ensure that their members comply with the provisions of the code of conduct. And then if they do not comply with those provisions, and Isaac has already indicated what those provisions are, that firstly, that all the political parties, leaders and members must respect the role of media before, during and after the elections. And secondly, that they must ensure free access of media to cover the events for the elections. And lastly, that they've got to ensure that there is no intimidation of those who are covering the elections. So it is an important factor. And of course, as I've indicated, violation of that or non-adherence to the provisions of the Code of Conduct contaminates the environment within which the elections are supposed to be taking place.
Apart from playing a charge tomorrow, which you said is what our crew and the organization will be doing, are we going to engage the political party concerned?
We are hoping that the party is going to come out in the first place and condemn the incident.
Yes.
And from there, we should be able to have a conversation about what needs to be done.
And that was the point of inviting them.
And in fact, we have engaged in the past week with the party on the processes that are followed in the way we cover the elections and what needs to be done, and submission of schedules in advance so that we allocate our resources in time. So we have engaged with the party before, and we are hoping that there will be further engagement now. But I think, for me, one thing that unsettles me is the fact that we, in addition to promoting transparency, which is a democratic principle, and promoting access to information, promoting media freedom, and getting people to account for the things that they do, regardless of where they are and who they are, is the fact that in the main, as the media, we also have to promote human rights observance, and access to information is one of those rights. So when that right is trampled on, as we have seen in this case, bearing in mind that the SABC is a massive institution that talks to millions of citizens in the country. So it's not just the one story, it's the people who would have had access to that story that are not going to have access to that story as a result of the incident. So that's greatly worrying, because free flow of information is what we expect to be protected as the media, and particularly public service media, because we have this obligation to ensure that ahead of elections, all citizens have credible information so that they make informed decisions. When that is hindered, it becomes a huge problem. Yeah.
Isak Minar, the things that Patiswa has just spoken about obviously apply to each and every media practitioner, in the country. As much as the SABC may have a particular mandate, but the things that she was talking about apply to each and every one of us out there trying to bring the story of this election to South Africans.
Yes, of course, because it is a combined effort of all the media, whether it's public service, commercial, community media, to try and ensure that the electorate have the information that they need so that they go and vote. So as Patiswa said, I cannot emphasize it enough, it's not just an attack on the media, it's actually an attack on that will that will cause the public not to be informed about information that can assist them to exercise their democratic right. I would like to say that when an incident like this happens, we expect from the media to not only report such incidents to the police, because it's clearly a criminal act, but in terms of the Electoral Act and the Code of Conduct, it can also be taken to the Electoral Court. And in fact, the Chief Electoral Officer also has, in terms of the Act, the powers to actually intervene and make sure that such an incident be dealt with speedily. And this is an issue that Sanef raised with the IEC to try and come to some kind of agreement that the moment there is problems in terms of the Code of Conduct against the media, so that they cannot do what they need to do, that the IEC assists to try and resolve the issue as quickly as possible. The IEC has also conflict resolution mechanisms. So there are actually quite a number of different steps that can be taken. And the compliance with the clauses regarding the media have not been really tested in previous elections. So we really hope that this incident and some other incidents that happened over the past few weeks, that we can try and act in such a way that there's a culture that media is respected and assisted to do their work instead of obstructed to do their work.
Teritsalani, we are noting there's both Tiswa and Isak were raising all the points that they were raising. Quick last word from you.
Of course, as Isak has indicated, Section 103A of the Electoral Act empowers the Commission to deal with the violations of the Code of Conduct through conciliation. So they've got the power to bring the parties together in order to be able to deal with this. But also Section 96 of the Electoral Act empowers the Electoral Court to impose certain penalties to a party or individuals or candidates that are violating the provisions of the Code of Conduct. You know, so it is up to the Commission, firstly, to act in terms of Section 103A of the Electoral Act, or alternatively for any person to take an issue with the Electoral Court in terms of Section 96 of the Electoral Act to make sure that there are penalties imposed against any person who is violating the provisions of the Code of Conduct.
Well, hopefully all these processes will kick in and someone is going to learn a lesson from this. Patricia Makopeni, who is the head of news here at the SABC. Isak Minar, who is a member of the South African National Editors Forum Executive, as well as Terry Tsalane, who is from the Institute of Election Management Services.